This is important stuff
for you to know.
Welcome to the show. This is Tony.
And this is Javier.
This is the show where we talk about what we believe may be important stuff.
But in the end, it's for you to decide.
Welcome to the show, everybody. Javier, I'd like to talk today about a subject that has a lot of influence around the world, the arts. Music, dance, painting, literature, architecture, all the types of arts, the influences on cultures. First, is this an important topic? And maybe we can bring some perspective to the importance, if it is important, on cultures that the arts carry. We go through all countries, many measures and expenses to protect these. Museums are maintained and developed, transporting and investigating and finding discoveries of the arts. And it even causes some dispute, the arts, between countries. So, is this an important topic that we should talk about, and does it affect culture?
Well, definitely. Art it's very important. It has been throughout history. A way of number one, of expressing yourself, your traditions, your cultures, and number two, a way of communicating your cultures, your traditions to other cultures across the world. From the times that people became nomads and they would move from one place to another, somehow they were always carrying out and exchanging their culture, their knowledge, and so on, traditions with other people. So it has been important all throughout history, but now I think the world today, because of the differences in cultures that we still have, even though globalization has helped in some way to overcome those differences, we see a lot of conflict, a lot of tensions among cultures. And I see art as a way of substituting what traditionally were the means of taking your culture into other parts of the world.
Well, don't we do that through diplomacy now? We have diplomats that go around the world from all countries, not just from the U.S., but all countries, to present their image, their culture to another country. And don't we do that through businesses? So somehow diplomacy and politics ties into this already. Where do the arts fall then?
Well, it's number one. There are other means of communicating cultures. One of them is war. You're forcing your culture into other people.
Yes.
I don't know what came first, whether diplomacy or war. I have no idea, honestly, which one came first. We could be sitting here speculating which one was first. But nevertheless, one not substituted, but complemented the other one. When diplomacy doesn't work, is not efficient and effective, then people take arms and they fight each other, and the winner somehow takes its culture to other parts of the world.
So that's not sharing of cultures or communicating, that's imposing.
Well, no, you're communicating it, but you're imposing
You're
it.
imposing it, yes.
It's a one-way communication,
yes.
But you do it. Then we have, I guess, the arts, it's another form. And I think it's very effective. There are so many examples of what the different forms of art.
Let's talk about some of the examples, and maybe we can shed some perspective on how it does affect and influence. And is it better than diplomacy? Let's see.
Well, it's a softer, less threatening way of communicating. You're not forcing your culture. You're just presenting it to other people, to other cultures. I've always thought about why does the world know so much about the pyramids, about Tutankhamun and the Egyptian, culture and whatever it was found in the pyramids was presented to the world in museums, especially in England, in London, and many people were exposed to artifacts and so much art that came from the pyramids and from the Egyptian, old Egyptian cultures. that people know about it. If you go, for example, you go in Paris to the Louvre, I mean, it's amazing how much you can learn about other civilizations and other cultures. You go to in Madrid, I mean, everywhere where you go, you will see expos of art forms from many of the ancient cultures, and you get to see, maybe understand how those cultures have developed to what they are today from what it was done centuries and thousands of years before.
Let me just bring up kind of a side point to that, because you're right. In Paris, in Madrid, you can find in museums tremendous learning of past cultures. But why are they in that country? Why in a British museum are there Egyptian artifacts assembled? Isn't that imposition of culture?
That's a very touchy subject. We have, again, I mentioned before about wars.
Yes.
Colonization. That, in a way, has facilitated the extraction, of artifacts and art forms, and they have been taken to another country, and now there's a dispute of should they be brought back to the country where they came from. You have the example, again, of what is in the British Museum. You have the example from Machu Picchu in Peru. The American discoverer, he took a lot of artifacts from Machu Picchu, and they are in the U.S., I believe, in Ohio State University. And there's a dispute between the Peruvian government and the U.S. and say, we want them back because they belong to us. So ownership, it's one thing. But the fact that some people here in the U.S. and the rest of the world have a way of seeing what the Incas did in Peru, maybe had they been kept in Machu Picchu, maybe not too many people would be exposed. I'm not favoring taking them to another place.
Right.
Okay, what I'm saying is this is a consequence of what happened. So the ownership, I think it's an issue that does not take away from the fact that you're communicating through different art forms. But again, it's a very complicated issue. I don't know if you want to get into that of ownership. And
yeah, it is very complicated, and I think that's where the arts maybe coincide with diplomacy and politics, that it's an imposition of the arts. But let's get into more specifically the influences of the arts, literature, painting.
It's a form of dialogue. I think it's a very subtle, elegant, even beautiful form of establishing a dialogue across cultures. You have, for example, paintings that you can see anywhere in the world, that they're even loaned from one museum to another. And you can see, I have seen, I saw the Tutankhamun a few years back in New England, in Boston. I think they went all over the United States.
Traveling the U.S.
You always have from China, from Japan, from everywhere. You can see that. So, and you get exposed to cultures that are so remote, so ancient, and so far away from what you're used to seeing in your own country, or your own city or town, that I think it's very beneficial to cross-culturalization. You can see what is being done, what other people praise, what other people like to see about their own cultures. So it's a dialogue, because you send me some, you bring some to us, we can share ours to you, and you can probably understand more what we are and why we are the way that we are. I know it's redundant.
Yeah, no.
By seeing our art expressions. We have music, for example, and I have an example. One of the best ambassadors from Venezuela today is this foundation of the symphonies, where an example to the world. They have played in every major city in the world, and it's amazing to see these young kids, hundreds of young kids, are playing music at the level of a professional musician. And it's a great ambassadors. We have Dudamel, the conductor. Also now, I think it's in the LA Symphony. He's another ambassador. So, I mean, I could cite so many people. I remember in the 60s when I was in high school, when Miriam Makeba came to the U.S., and she's from South Africa, or she was, I don't know if she's still alive. It was amazing for us to see, because she not only brought her voice and her music, but she, in our case, she talked about her culture, what was happening in her country of South Africa.
Yes.
So, and we had, for example, even in the Cold War, when we were talking about war before, even during the Cold War, you could watch the Bolshoi Ballet from
Yes.
the former Soviet Union, from Russia, the National Ballet from Cuba.
Mm-hmm.
So even in times of tension, of stress, of political stress or diplomacy,
Yeah.
we open the doors to art expressions.
One comes to mind, as you were talking about, even in times of the Cold War. Political unrest between Cuba and the U.S. for 50 years, 60 years, I don't know exactly, but during that period of time, the Buena Vista Social Club lit a fire throughout the United States and probably extended out beyond the world. But it was a discovery of a new music, a new sound that came from these Cuban musicians that cultivated this sound for many generations.
I don't remember, but probably it was after the Cold War. But still, it was an expression of art from a country in which we haven't had that good relations,
Right.
and they were welcome. They played at Carnegie Hall.
Yes.
If you look at at Carnegie Hall, you have people who have been there from every corner of the world. You have river dance, for example. It's a way
From Ireland.
From Ireland. It's a way of. I saw river dance in Brazil, and it was amazing. And we learned so much about Ireland, about their music, about their dancing, about their people, that it's a show. But it brings in the media, in the newspapers, in the television, when they're presenting the show that is coming, they have the opportunity to bring Ireland to the people, and they go all over the world.
Yeah, it truly is a form of communication as people sit. The music neutralized. My daughter was telling me an interesting story. She went through Argentina and Brazil on a trekking expedition with some friends, and in Brazil, a very remote part of the country where many Brazilians don't even visit, they stayed with families during this trekking expedition, and she found a language. She speaks Spanish very well. She can understand Portuguese, but there was a language spoken there completely foreign to her, and they had difficulty. They couldn't communicate with the families where they were staying. And one night, she put on some music of Mano Chao from Argentina, I believe. The faces lit up of the people, the host family, and it became a form of communication. They danced and sang what they knew. So it neutralized the lack of a language to communicate. I thought it was a very interesting story on the influence of music on different cultures.
I have an example. Now that you mentioned Brazil, I lived in Brazil for 3 years, and I was exposed to something that I never knew it existed in Brazil. I think it's in central Brazil. In a large part of central Brazil, the vaqueros, like cowboys,
yes.
They have the cowboys exactly as we have here in the U.S. They dress the same. The music is the same, except one is sung in English and one is sung in Portuguese. They have rodeos. Everything. They do a step dance.
Wow.
Everything is the same. Like I told you, the way they dress. You feel like you are in the West, in the American West.
Shocking. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
And it's huge. It's a huge industry. The music, and they even have Brazilians, rodeo riders.
Bull riders.
Bull riders.
And rodeo.
They compete here in the U.S.
Yeah.
And this is in the middle of Brazil. So where did they learn that? Well, from the TV, from the movies, from the music.
Yeah, there was an influence of music. Well, what I'd like to talk about in the next segment, Javier, is the effect of the arts on the the politics or diplomacy of countries? Which is a better method of going between countries for the communication? Is it effective? Does it stick? And how does it get out to populations? Through the arts, how do they learn about different cultures? So let's pause here for a short break, and we'll be right back to pick that up, talk about the arts. Welcome back, everybody. Okay, Javier, let's pick it up, our conversation here on the arts again. We talk about cultural exchange. Countries are doing this all the time, especially in contemporary times, through diplomacy and politics, political influences around the world. Which is stronger, the arts in sharing cultures or the diplomacy and politics? How do you see it?
You mean stronger or more effective?
Good point.
Stronger is of course is warfare. Okay, then politics, maybe, as you know, politics, it's the only, I guess, the goal of politics is to get power and maintain power. Keep it by any means. So it is stronger or more forceful. I don't know about how effective it is. I have my doubts. Okay, there may be examples like in India and the British, when it was a British colony. There's still a lot of British influence in like in the formal government, the language,
schools, they teach English.
So
also.
Yes, it did stay to some extent. The colonial culture stayed in England. I mean, in India to some extent. But I think the arts, and we haven't spoken about other, many forms of arts. For example, there's a great example. It's the movies.
Terrific.
Okay,
terrific
so
example.
The visual arts in the movies, the impact that the movie have had in exporting and importing. Because remember, when you take let's say you take a show, Riverdance.
Yes.
The dancers, they came to Brazil. They presented the culture to the Brazilians, but they also receive the influence of the Brazilian culture.
Yes.
So it's a two-way street, and the way that you can handle that through advertising and so on, it's a way to present both countries to the other. So in movies that happens. You have, for example, the Oscars. I know that not everybody likes to watch the Oscars, but if you see how many people watch the Oscars every year, and you have American films, you have foreign films, and people get exposed to movie making from other parts of the world. I, for example, love the independent films.
Yes.
The ones that we see at the Sundance Festival, in Cannes, for example. In Cannes, everybody that it's into the movie industry or who likes movies goes to Cannes to see movies from every part of the world.
Yes.
Honestly, I have learned, and I don't want to minimize, how much I know about India, but I don't know that much actually. But by watching Indian movies that I like, especially the recent ones.
Yeah.
No, not the B-type movies from Bollywood, but like the
Best Exotic Marigold Hotel. We talked about
that's a great
before.
movie. That's
Terrific.
a great movie, and you see India, or the other movie, the Slumdog Millionaire. Okay, wow, it's amazing how you get exposed. Then the Estación Central, the Brazilian music about the favelas in Rio de Janeiro. The Argentinian movies, Spanish movies,
yes,
Italian movies. Remember the days of
one good example of what you're talking about was Steven Spielberg's Schindler's List. This exposed a root problem that was suspect, or it really painted a picture that will stand the test of time.
Well, I don't know if it's suspect is the.
Well, there were a lot of people suspicious.
But no, no, I don't think. It's obvious that the Holocaust took place.
Obvious.
But it's bringing the evidence to some people who maybe didn't realize the magnitude of the horror
Yes.
that happened to the Jewish people in Europe.
Right.
So and this is again another example, but in movies you have like I mentioned, in the 70s and 80s, the Italian movies were very popular.
Mm-hmm.
It was a way for people to learn about Italy or about Europe. You had Ingmar Bergman from Sweden.
Mm-hmm.
His movies were incredible. Maybe not for everybody because they were very confusing and complicated.
Yeah.
But I love to watch them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so movies, it's a great example of how you can communicate your culture to other people,
Mm-hmm.
and for them to have an idea. The Kite Flyer
Yes.
from
Wonderful,
Afghanistan.
from
I
Afghanistan.
mean, all we know, or all that many people know about Afghanistan, they learn from the war. But Afghanistan has things that are not only related to the war.
Right.
Okay, so this is what I'm saying, that we should not limit the way that we communicate just by diplomacy and politics.
What about this influence of the arts, though? What if you have promiscuous movies, or you have music that is off the normal,
The beaten path.
off the beaten path?
Mhm.
Yeah. Or books, literature it's written that is counter to the morals of a culture. And maybe populations don't want that exposure into their culture. Should they, or is this politics, where suddenly they decide what comes in and what doesn't come in?
Well, then we're getting into political issue, which is freedom of expression.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I believe that people should be able to read what they want to read. Not for the government to decide. If and here we're getting into a very complicated terrain,
Mm-hmm.
but should we leave it up to the government to decide what we have to read? That's what is happening in Cuba.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
happened in the Soviet Union. That's
Right.
what happened in Nazi Germany when they
Yeah.
were burning books.
Right.
So we don't want that to happen. I want to be allowed to choose what I want to read.
But
Now,
in
if
reality,
I find it that it's against my morals and my principles, I just put it back. I don't buy it.
So in reality, there are many countries still that do not allow that open expression.
Oh yes.
Of movies,
Mhm.
music, and there are some bad influences. In the United States, there's a lot of discussion right now about racial impacts of rap music, the influence that may have on a specific culture within the United States. I don't know if that's true or not, but we're not here to debate that. It's just, if that goes to another country, do they see this as a cultural exchange or an artificial intervention somehow? I mean, it could be taken as a political move.
Well, at the same time, I mean, there is freedom of expression. The rapper has the right to go and sing in England or in France. That's his right. The same thing with a country music singer that
Mhm.
goes. You can take the symphony. You can take the Boston Pops to the same place. So everybody should be able to express themselves. Now it is for the host country and the host people to decide what they want to watch and what they want to hear. What they make of that's another thing. I'm sure they don't think that the Americans are all rappers.
Yeah, let's hope not. Yeah.
No, because
I'm sure they
how
don't.
many musicians, how many artists you have
Yes.
that go all around the world? They don't think that everybody's here Lady Gaga either.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think if we allowed the free expression in all over the world,
Mm-hmm.
it would be a better world. Because you will know that in the U.S. you have people who like rap music. There are people who like country music.
Yes.
There are people who like rock and roll.
So how do you separate?
It's diversity. This is I mean, the world has to accept that it's a diverse environment.
But how do you overcome the politics of this issue to have a free expression of the arts in a cultural exchange, because the politics many times of nations dictate what they call free expression or restricted expression.
That's a point that I'm trying to make, that we should allow the free expression. That is not. I think it's utopic. It's a utopia, because many countries will filter who they want to allow to present themselves in the country. So yes, I mean, ideally we should be allowed to play whatever we want anywhere.
Yes,
But
I would agree.
But and that would, like I said, it's a way, it's a language different than the traditional way of expressing yourself, because through the music you learn so much. Honestly, when you hear, for example, again, country western music, you learn a little bit about a part of the U.S.
Yes.
What the lifestyle is. Okay, even the rappers, they express what they have lived wherever they came from, in a way, what their society, what their microculture is like.
Right.
So you're learning from musicians from the Andes, with the flutes and so on. You learn from them. We talked about river dance. I mean, so many. The Beatles, that's another great example. When the Beatles came to the U.S. and actually all over the world, even today, 50 years later, we're still talking about the Beatles.
Yes.
Michael Jackson. I know he's a controversial figure, but Michael Jackson made a tremendous impact all over the world. And Sinatra and Pavarotti and Jose, what's his name, and the other tenor.
Andrea Bocelli.
I know, from Italy, Andrea Bocelli, yes. Placido Domingo.
Yeah.
Jose Carreras. Imagine this new kids, Il Volo, the three young kids from Italy. They're ambassadors to the world of the cultural and the arts from Italy.
So this is an expression of cultural exchange. And you're suggesting it should be free and open.
And it should be promoted. Books, for example, you were talking about books. I mean, I could not live in a place where somebody's going to dictate what I have to, what I can read, and then what I can listen to, what I can watch.
Yes.
You're missing out to what is happening in the world around you, and how can you prevent me from learning about other people, other cultures?
Well, I want to wrap this up here and come back in the next segment, short segment here, to talk about something that is very organized and exchanged. The Olympics. Just briefly, we want to touch on that, on sports, and the effect. So we'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back, everyone. Javier, I want to pick up something that we left off here. We talked about organized and open sharing of the arts. What about sports? Mainly the Olympics. Is this a great cultural exchange equivalent to the arts? It's one of the forms of art that can substitute politics and diplomacy?
Well, of course it is. It's been that way, especially in the modern Olympics in the last 130 years since they reopened the Olympic Games in France in 1892, I guess.
Yes.
Definitely. Why do you think countries fight so much to be the host of the Olympics? Because you're going to be exposed to the world for at least 2 months, month and a half.
Yes.
Every day. Every day, people, all the media all over the world will be talking and will be showing your country to the world. So I think that's a good example of what does the Olympics mean to this issue that we were talking about a language in which you can communicate your culture to other people and your traditions. In the Olympics, you have people from everywhere competing. They exchange, even though they compete against each other, they have opportunities to talk during the games, in the breaks, in the cafeterias or whatever. The visitors who go there, I mean, people go by the thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, to visit the host country during the Olympics.
Yes.
Same thing with the World Cup, the World Series. Everybody's watching. Imagine how much people learn about the game of, not only about the game of baseball, but about a lot of the things that take
Football.
place. Huh?
Football, you mean? The game of football,
No,
soccer.
no. I'm talking about the World Series, for
Ah,
example.
World Series. Yeah. Okay.
And about the U.S., what people know about the U.S. Baseball, even though they don't play baseball in many countries, but they watch and they know what is going on. They know about the Yankees and the Red Sox, the feud between them.
Mm-hmm.
Even American football.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people watch it.
Oh,
a lot of people watch it.
The
I love
demand
it.
in yes.
Golf. We just saw the British Open.
Mm-hmm.
It was beautiful. The views of Scotland.
What's the home of golf?
The home
That's
of golf.
The home
exactly.
Of golf.
The birthplace of golf. And you learn so much.
And when during the Olympics or the World Cup or these different visiting events, the media focuses on a country, populations visit that country. During that period of time, they will become exposed to the museums, mm-hmm. the culture, mm-hmm. the food, the language of a country, and that's the cultural exchange. And many times they bring back the music and the food and the art, literature of a country. So it is a cultural exchange. I guess the difficult part is allowing a free and open exchange for the arts. It seems that we can do this with the Olympics. The Olympics, every 4 years, has a very well-designed organization that builds up to this sharing. Why can't we do this openly across borders with the arts more and substitute the diplomacy?
Well, but I think the arts, it is a generalized form of expression. I think maybe we're exaggerating if we're suggesting that countries are blocking, events, art shows, and so on. Maybe that's not the case worldwide. Maybe in some places it is. Mm-hmm. So it is a way. It's a very effective way today, the arts, to communicate. But I forgot to mention one great example that I remember way back. I don't know if they're still around. One of the best ambassadors that the U.S. had for many years, all over the world. I saw them everywhere I went. From basketball.
The Harlem
Globetrotters.
Yes.
People would love them. I mean, they were funny and they were engaging with the public. They show a different American prototype of what they maybe learn about in the media.
Yes.
Okay, these were people who were, they were so funny and friendly everywhere they went. Everybody loved them.
It certainly transcended language barriers.
Exactly.
Because they traveled to countries
I forgot to mention that, but that was a good example when we were talking about sports.
Yes. We're up against time here, and we need to wrap this up. Any final thoughts on the arts?
I think the message is that people should go and watch every time we have in the city visiting different art forms and even in sports. You should go and watch because somehow you're going to get exposed to different cultures. I know we're repeating the word cultural exchange, mm-hmm. but it is a fact that the more we know about other people, probably this world would be better because we will learn, we will understand what they are and who they are, and we will be able to have a more friendly relationship with the rest of the world.
Good point. I think you brought up a great point too on the influence of the movies and the music that it has around the world, some of the ambassadors. So we're going to leave it right there. We'll be back with our final segment here after a short break. Welcome back, everybody. Javier, I want to pick up on something we've done in the past in other segments. We've talked about warning labels on products and signs around the country. Here today, I want to talk about headlines that are in the news that we pick up and report it. I think proofreading might be a lost art in that business. But this could be important stuff.
Or is it?
Well, let's decide. Let's talk
Okay.
about a few of these.
Go ahead.
Well, here's a good one. A group of hospitals are sued by 7-foot doctors. Whoa.
Those are big guys.
That is important. Yeah. Well, I never want to be sued by 7-foot doctors.
I mean, they sound like the abominable snowman. I mean, big guys, 7 foot.
Big. 7-foot doctors.
Like Shaquille, maybe?
Yeah.
Shaquille O'Neal and those guys?
They probably even have a basketball team, intramural team that they play. They're called the 7-foot doctors.
And maybe the hospital doesn't allow them to play in the basketball court.
So they're suing.
Oh, so they're suing.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's the doors that are too low.
Oh, there's a because if you're 7 feet tall, that's pretty big.
Yeah,
that's pretty big.
Maybe they're complaining that the doors are not high enough.
I wonder how many doctors in that hospital are 7 feet tall. They don't say how many. They just say that hospitals are sued by 7-foot doctors.
Yeah. Now imagine if you're a surgeon,
mm-hmm.
and you go into an operating room, okay, and you keep hitting your head with the lights on top of the bed of the operating table.
Yeah.
And day after day, I mean, you're giving your profession and your life to help other people who are sick, and you do the surgery, and every time you walk in, bam, you hit the lamp.
Wow.
Eventually, you're gonna be very upset.
You want that moved. Yeah.
Yeah, and if they don't move it, you sue the hospital.
Yeah. And it sounds like more than one, because it's doctors. 7-foot doctors.
Oh, wait. Say that again?
7-foot doctors.
What if they're podiatrists? What if they're doctors who specialize
podiatrists.
Podiatrists.
A foot doctor.
A doctor who specializes in treating
Do you
patients.
think all foot doctors, though, are 7 feet tall?
No. It says 7. Not one doctor who is 7. 7 foot, 7 doctors who specialize in foot surgeries, or that 10 people who have problems with their feet. So maybe they send 7 of them who are very upset. See, it's not
but
related
how did they get them all in one hospital, all these big guys?
No, they're not big, Tony.
No.
They are only
7 foot is pretty big.
No. 7, make a pause.
Okay.
7 foot doctors. Like you say 7 gynecologists.
7 podiatrists.
Podiatrists
are suing. Okay.
See?
I missed that.
Yes. I did it for a while, but then I said, well, maybe they mean specialists. Okay, 7 specialists.
See,
on feet. Okay.
If I had a problem with my foot, I already was not going to one of these hospitals because it's scary.
No, I would be intimidated by 7-foot doctors.
Yes.
So okay. Yeah, I think we got that one. Be careful when you go into hospital and you see big doctors, because maybe they're going to sue them.
Yeah.
Sue the hospital.
Yeah, you have to be careful. Okay, well, I think this one is the winner of the day.
Yeah.
Okay, the winner of the day. But it makes sense. Here's the headline. Typhoon rips through cemetery. Hundreds dead.
These guys, again, I think it's this family, the experts.
Yes.
And the other guys who have made, like the guy with the temperature. I mean, these are very brilliant minds.
Yes.
I mean, they realized, that after the typhoon went past the cemetery, that there were hundreds of people dead.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe...
Aren't their observations somewhat obvious, though? A cemetery? Is it possible that there were many dead already before the typhoon?
Well, that's one option.
So they observed, wow, there are hundreds.
Yeah, but okay, that's one. I think that this one merits to have a smaller print explanation. Okay, let's say it happens in, I believe in Philippines, there's a lot of Catholic Christians.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and they celebrate, the Day of the Dead,
uh-huh.
which I think is sometime
Like Halloween, the end of
Yeah, I think
October,
exactly.
somewhere around there.
Okay, and it is a tradition that in that day you go to the cemetery to visit your relatives who have passed away.
Okay.
So maybe the typhoon hit the cemetery the day of the death, where there were a lot of people at the cemetery visiting their dead relatives, and they just got killed. So that could be another interpretation. Now, if you add those dead who got the people who were visiting for the day at the cemetery, plus the people who were already dead,
yes,
that's a lot of people.
Wow. You know,
so that's why maybe you have hundreds, you know.
There was a cemetery when I was a young boy, a cemetery just down the block from my home. And it was an old cemetery. And in the evening, in the summertime, many nights I would have to walk past this cemetery back to my house from my friend's house. And my friend asked me, why are you always so afraid to walk past the cemetery at night when you're on your way home? And I said, well, how many dead people do you think are in that cemetery? And he said to me, I always remember this, I hope all of them.
Yeah, we do hope. So, well, I think we have a winner. We have a winner, definitely.
I think we have a winner.
Yes. Even though the other ones are also pretty interesting, you know.
So, would you say this is important stuff because
we thought about it.
Proofreading is a dying art.
Yes. And this is just a few because every day you pick up a newspaper, especially newspapers. Mm-hmm. I don't know why, because you don't see that on TV. Mm-hmm. Rarely. Sometimes you do. Okay, but rarely. Mm-hmm. But this is normally in newspapers.
Headlines.
Or ads.
They have to try to squeeze it into a small space, so many times it's just not
Or
clear.
They have to sell, because 7 doctors who are suing a hospital, it doesn't sell. I mean, would you rush to a newsstand to buy a newspaper that has a headline that says, hospitals are sued by 7 doctors?
No,
you wouldn't.
No.
Now, if it says
but 7-foot doctors,
wow. I mean, you say, wow, there's something. I don't know. Maybe this is a NBA hospital or something.
For sure.
So so I think it's important.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Well, Javier, we've come to the end of the show.
We certainly had a good time, and we hope our listeners did too.
Maybe along the way, someone even learned something.
And remember, if you think something is
important stuff,
let us know and we will talk about it.
So, until next time, hasta la vista.